Okay, so now you can see that my text sits nicely inside of this border area without going over and without coming into the image. And I'm just going to try to center it a little bit here before I go any further. Okay. So now that that's happened, the next thing that I'm going to look to do is simply take that text and duplicate it and drop it down and place it 3 more times around all of the other borders. You can see that it's at all the other borders we're going to have to turn it in different directions, so that's what I'm going to be working on now, and I will be making sure to explain what I'm doing as I go along. So at this point I'm going to come back up into Layer, and I'm going to ask that it duplicate this layer. I just want to duplicate that text layer. So you can see now in my layers palette that I have the original text as well. I have copied that text, and what I'd like to do at this point is to do a rotation on that text. So I'm going to come down to Transform, and I'm going to ask it to rotate that text a full 90 degrees in the clockwise position. Now I'm able to just, while I'm on my Move tool in my Tools palette, move that text over to the right-hand margin and go ahead and place it carefully so that it lines up nicely according to the text that I did at the top margin. One more thing now that we have turned a corner that I'd like to point out is that this final portion of the image on the corner here is going to get lost as it folds over and is assembled around the back of your image. When you do go into the rows system and you see our templates there, you will be able to see exactly where that happens. But we do want to keep this corner completely free of any text just to ensure that that doesn't happen to us. Now I'm going to move on to make the next border. So I'm going to come back up to Layer and use the same steps that I made before. Click OK. Come into Edit, Transform, rotate 90 degrees clockwise. You can see that our text is now upside down and just hanging out there on the side of our image. We're going to make sure again that we're on our Move tool. And once again we're going to go ahead and place that text right underneath our image, and I would like this end of the ellipse and the end of the S to line up properly. So what I'm going to do is just pull a guide mark to the end of that S and pull a guide mark to the end of the ellipse on the top, and then I'm going to use my arrow keys and simply nudge that text into place. So I'm happy with that. And once again I'm going to come back up into Layer, duplicate layer, hit OK, Edit, Transform, rotate 90 degrees clockwise. You can see that our text is sitting around right here. Again, I'm going to make sure that I'm on my Move tool, and I'm going to move my text over to my left-hand margin. Once again, I'd like the edges to line up, so I'm going to pull a few more guides. I'm looking over at the right-hand margin right now as I do this, and I'm pulling a guide to the edge of the S and to the end of the ellipse at the end of nice. And since I am still selected on the layer that's controlling this text on the left, I'm just going to use my arrow keys and nudge that text over until it sits properly within my image. So this completes adding all of the text to our word wrap. What I'm going to do at this point is remove all of our guidelines so that we can see our image as it was, or as it is rather, pardon me. So what I did is I went to View, I clicked on Extras, and that will both remove and add your guides to your image. So now you can see our image as it will be printed. The sugar and spice and everything nice goes around the image on all 4 margins. We have a nice colored border that text is able to sit on. We have a few more steps to take before we go any further. You can see that my Layers palette is sitting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen. I've referred to it a couple times. And what I'm going to do now as I move it forward is that I'm going to merge all of my layers together so that I can save this image as a JPEG. So I'm going to highlight that top layer, and I'm going to bring my cursor down to the bottom layer, and I'm holding Shift and clicking on the bottom layer, which is going to highlight all of my layers at once. I'm going to come up into my layers selection on my top toolbar, and I'm going to come all the way down to Merge Layers. Click on that, and now we have one layer that all of that information sits within. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and save my file. I'm going to click Save As, and I'm going to save this as Peyton Word Wrap 16 by 20. I'm going to place it on my desktop, and I am going to save it as a JPEG. Click Save. The next screen that's going to come up is going to ask you to choose the settings for the quality of the JPEG that you're saving. I do want it at a quality 12, so that is all ready to go. I'm going to click OK, and that completes setting up a word wrap in Photoshop prior to uploading it into Rose. There's also a video tutorial that's going to show you step-by-step how to order your word wrap in Rose, so I do encourage you to take a look at that. So once again, I'd like to thank you for spending your time with the video tutorial section of Simply Canvas and Simply Color Lab. My name is Emily Sullivan, and we look forward to doing business with you in the future.